There is a game where you can win but still lose, even after gaining 540,000 supporters, or even after 2 million votes. You can still be defeated. There is the US presidential election. As the presidential election season approaches, the thing that is complicated to understand is the US electoral system. The US presidential election is a hybrid of direct and indirect voting. First, voters cast their ballots to choose the electors, who then vote for the presidential candidates. So, in the end, it's the electors who choose the president. The number of electors is allocated according to the number of senators and representatives each state has in Congress. Each state has 2 senators, making a total of 100, and the House of Representatives has 435 members, distributed proportionally according to the population. This means that states with a large population have more electors. For example, California, the most populous state, has 54 electors, while less populous states like Alaska, Delaware, and Vermont have 3 electors each. And even though Washington, D.C. is not a state, it's home to a large population, so it also gets electors. Its treaty is the same as the least populated states, so Washington, D.C. is allocated 3 electors. All in all, a total of 538 electors choose the next US president. So, who are the electors with the right to vote? Each state prepares a slate of elector candidates who are members of the political parties of the presidential candidates. The electors from the party that wins the most votes in the general election becomes the final electors. This leads to one of the unique aspects of the US presidential election, the winner-takes-all system. In the US, the candidate who wins the most votes in each state takes all of that state's electoral votes. This system is adopted in 48 states, with the exception of Maine and Nebraska. For example, if the Democratic and Republican candidates each win 51% and 49% of the votes in California, all 54 of the California's electoral votes would go to the Democratic candidates. In fact, during the 2016 presidential election, Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton won 2 million more popular votes than the Republican candidate Donald Trump, but lost the election due to fewer electoral votes. There have been 5 instances in US history where a candidate won the popular vote but lost the electoral vote. In 1824, 1876, 1888, 2000, and most recently in 2016. To better understand the unique system of electing a US president, we need to look back to the late 18th century, when the US Constitution was created. At the time of US independence from Britain, there were 13 states. The representatives of these states were called the Founding Fathers. In 1787, the Founding Fathers held a constitutional convention to draft the US Constitution and discuss how the president would be elected. What the Founding Fathers would value most at the time was preserving local autonomy. They wanted each state, even the smallest states, to maintain the sovereignty and to have an influence in the presidential election. They also believed that it was unrealistic to elect a president directly through popular vote in a country with so much territory. So they established the Electoral College system, which allowed the state representatives to choose the president. Of course, the Electoral College system of the early days was different from what we see today. During the first 40 years, through 13 presidential elections, The US experimented with various election systems, such as having state legislatures choose the electors rather than the people. As the US politics became more party-driven, the practice of electors voting along party lines took hold. And with more states adopting the winner-take-all approach, the current system was born. Of course, even today, debates around the Electoral College versus the popular vote continue, with calls from change and reform. But there have been no major structural changes so far. So why does the US continue with such a complex electoral system? The answer is balance. The US election system embodies the principle of active citizen participation, while also preventing dominance by the majority or abuse of power. Alexis de Tocqueville, the French political philosopher and historian, praised the balance of democracy in the US. Though complex, the US presidential election system is a clear reflection of this unique balance of democracy. With less than a month remaining until the US presidential election, we'll soon see what the outcome would be this time.